Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we have Michael and Matt from Agency 96. Normally I'd give a intro for our guests, but these guys do so many things. I'm just gonna throw the ball in their court. So Michael, welcome to the show and tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks for having us, man. Our little intro, I guess, about us is we've been in the production scene, I guess you'd say, industry for the last 7 years. We started off. Well, I started off as Deep Rock Productions. Matt started off as Matthew Smith Films, and since then we've built a studio space. We're now Agency 96 is now a production agency. We also do media buying, so anything and everything, pretty much inside of the production sphere, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Mike has been in the world. I think Mike, give a bit of background on yourself, then I'll kind of give a background on me, and then we can talk about how we came together to kind of form this thing that's bigger than us, and how we formed this agency.
Sure, yeah. So like about 5 years ago, started Deep Rock Productions with a buddy of mine, and we just started off by doing like little small music videos. Progressively started doing more corporate and more commercial work. And then eventually, when COVID hit, we actually decided we were like, well, we got to start building a studio space here because our main client, which is Sleep Country Dormez-vous, they were needing like a lot more photography and more video stuff. And we needed a space to accommodate that. So built a studio and then thought, hey, let's try and rent it out. So one of my obvious thoughts was, hey, let me call Matt and see if he's interested inside the studio space. And before that, we hadn't actually even worked together. So I said, hey, are you interested in studio space? He said, no, I just built my house actually, and I have an office space inside of my house now, so I don't really need it. But then one thing led to another, and we needed each other on different projects here and there, and that's how we kind of met. And now we're starting a whole new agency together. I don't know if that kind of explains it all.
Pretty much, yeah, that's how it
briefly.
works. Mike's a great producer. I've known him for quite some time, and I think I needed a lot of help on my projects. I work mainly as a director, and I've worked a lot here in Canada, but as well in the North American market as far as the US. So I have a lot of clientele as far as like Formula One and the NBA and stuff like that I work with in the States. We do a lot of music festivals and stuff like that. So I think I've needed support on a lot of productions here in Montreal, and Mike's such a great businessman in a sense where he knows how to put the pieces together, and if you have a budget, he'll manage to make everything work. And so it just felt like a natural forming relationship after the year of working together on different projects, that what we had was something, and we wanted to build something different, something new. So we're not necessarily a creative agency. We are production at heart. We're production first. So that, I think, what makes us different, because when these creative agencies come to us, we know how to execute, because you can put anything on paper, but it's down to the bones of how can we actually make this happen, and how can we bring this to life. So I think us all having dipped our toes in production in some sort, people really like that. People like that we know how to produce something and bring those ideas to life. So it's been a few months of Agency 96 in full effect. So I think we're on to some big things. We recently did a big print campaign for Michael Jordan and his tequila company, a billboard campaign. So that's right now in LA, Chicago, New York, Miami. So we're on to some things, and we're excited for what the future holds. That's for sure.
That's incredible. Like working with Michael. I mean, like that's really up there. And you guys just started this recently too. So you guys partnered up during the pandemic, like early on, later on.
Yeah, so we started working together probably over a year ago. We've worked together since, and it's been a few months. We've been working behind the scenes, but it's pretty much since, I think, late 2021 to now 2022 is when we're making a push outwards to make the brand aware and go public with it as far as a persona, not as a company. But I think, yeah, it's fairly new, but we're excited for what the future holds, and just being able to give clients everything they need in a one-stop shop. And I think that's where the studio comes into effect as well, in the office space that we have here in Montreal. And at the end goal, we do have ambitions to push out to the United States and have a headquarters there. So right now we just want to make our footprint here in Montreal in our home. And I think Mike can talk about the studio space, because that's been a huge benefit as well.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the big values that we're able to kind of push to a lot of clientele coming in, is being able to provide that space that is kind of just that creative, like, playground where you can kind of come in, come up with an idea and a concept, and every single time we have some new client come in the door, we tell them that there's no such thing as too big of a project, because the spaces can accommodate it, the studio can accommodate it. We get cars in here, we've done some stuff with Lamborghini. We've done some stuff with like McLarens in here. We've done some stuff with Kia did a commercial here, Chevrolet. So anything and everything can really come in here. We even had someone come in with like those big, Skyjack, like those really big
Oh,
ones that you
wow.
see on like constructions, just inside the studio. I didn't even know that was happening, but it was kind of interesting. So I mean, sky's the limit. What we can kind of do inside the space. It's just that kind of space to do stuff in.
Jesus, what kind of space do you guys have? Do you have like a warehouse sized studio
Yeah,
lot?
pretty
Like,
much. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah, so
about,
do that like right over Mike's like left shoulder. There's that door, and then it has like how many square feet?
got about 6,000 square feet in the back,
wow.
with full cyc wall. We've got full lighting grid up top as well. So everything's lit with aperture novas. And I think that was kind of one of the reasons that it's actually still surviving to this day, because without those guys coming out with such great lights, we have a lot of music videos that also come through here because they love the lights, they love the setup, and they love that it's already set up. Where a lot of times, I don't know if you guys have had that yourselves, but a lot of times you have to go and book a pre-lighting day to come in, run your cables, put everything over, get the Skyjack, rent a Skyjack,
Yeah.
put the cables through, and then figure out, make sure everything's going to be able to get plugged in properly, know what your lighting is. For us, it's like we needed it. So we said, screw it. Let's just keep everything as simple as possible for future clients as well. So when people rent out the studio, lights are already there. So we already give them that ease of use. And they can come in, shoot their video. Maybe they're there for 2 hours, maybe they're for 10 hours, maybe they're there for 5 days. But everything's like super built to be as customer oriented as possible.
That's amazing how like you guys are basically running an agency and a production studio at the same time. Obviously, you built it as a tool not only for yourselves, but you're also managing it like its own business. It's almost as if you guys are also booking your agency time in it within the business as well.
Oh,
Almost is
100%.
that kind of how you manage those two at the same time, because they're two completely, not necessarily completely different businesses, but they have a lot of different needs compared to the other one, right? And how do you guys typically go about sharing the responsibility or kind of managing that aspect?
So in terms of responsibility side, it's myself and actually my dad who own the studio space. So in terms of the responsibility on that end, the guys who also work with us on our team it's kind of like a helping back and forth whenever somebody's possibly renting something on a day. If the other half of the team is all on a shoot, then we'll ask somebody else in the team to kind of cover during then. But yeah, the aspects and like the advertising and the clientele for it are two almost completely different worlds, but they're also the same world. So what we love about having the studio and having everyone here is that not only are we able to on a whim go out and start shooting something, but also the people who come through the door, excuse me, when they come through the door, you're also sometimes getting like these big agencies like in Montreal, you got like a cassette, or maybe in Ogilvy that's coming through the door. So you're already meeting that manager or that producer right away, and then you make that relationship with them, make this their studio of choice, and then come in and say, hey, by the way, we also do production. So it also just is kind of that little tool to be able to meet new people, speak with new people, network, and do stuff like this, exactly like this, to just meet new people in the industry. It's just been a huge tool, not only for ourselves to be able to produce our own content, but also for meeting people.
That's incredible. Just to kind of use that as an intention as well for networking, because I feel any business owner has to find other ways to network that is a little bit different from how most people would typically do it. Everyone thinks, oh, you need to go to events, you need to cold outreach sometimes, but no, sometimes you need to create a resource or a tool that provides value to people that actually bring them to you in a way. And that is a very smart way to go about it. And I've always been curious about how to go about starting up a studio. Like what is the first thing where do you even start when it comes to that?
Well, for us, when we started the studio, the biggest thing was we knew what we wanted. We just didn't know how to execute it. So for us, it was kind of like learning. You going onto YouTube, you're like literally the same way that we started our own ourselves, because I didn't actually even go to film school. I just kind of I was in economics in university, and then said I wanted to take my love for video and turn that into a business. Um, but starting the studio was kind of like just trying to figure out exactly what we needed, and then how could we also service that and sell that to the public, kind of idea, when we're not using it. So the first thing we had to do was find a space, and that took us about a year and a half to actually find a space that, one, worked with all of our locations and where we all lived, to be as close as possible, and then also to be as close as possible to other production companies, agencies, creative agencies. So there's a lot of, I don't know if you guys have been downtown or worked in downtown Montreal, but there's a big sector of it that is like all the creative agencies work downtown Montreal. But the problem is that a lot of production studios, they build themselves close to them as well, but there's no parking. They're on the 8th floor. They're really small. They have like
No elevator.
no elevator.
Oh, that's the
Exactly.
worst.
My God, if there's no elevator, then screw it.
What's the
I'm
point?
canceling the shoot. I'm going home. So for
Biggest-
us,
the biggest complaint, not the complaint, but the biggest thing that I've heard was the parking thing.
oh,
Yeah. Parking's always a nightmare.
Bring like a grip truck, or like even like cast crew, like everyone just trying to find parking, that's a huge problem. So the fact that we have a parking lot and like loading dock, that makes, and like the same level loading dock, I think that's a huge plus, definitely.
Absolutely. So it was all about kind of finding that like sweet spot in between everything, where it's like you're not too close to there that you can't get parking, but you're also not too far away that no one wants to come to you, as well as having a space that's big enough to actually accommodate for the stuff that we need to do. So you find that space, and then once you're given the space, and we're not really given it, you have to pay for it. You know what that's like. When you got to pay for that, then you start to figure out, okay, well, now how do we populate this whole space to make it look the way we want to do it? So we started with coming up with plans and trying to figure out where to put different pieces, and we really wanted to be, like I said, we're customer oriented, so we want to make sure that there's a space that was big enough for people to be able to either read scripts or go over the storyboards or the ideas, concepts on the day of excuse me, with the actors away from set, so that set can be its own thing. Things can happen over there. The crew can just take care of things instead of everybody mingling and walking over each other and all kind of stuff. So we started with building the whole client lounge area. So we have our dressing rooms, makeup area, little kitchenette space, couch space, so that with a TV that we can also set up wireless viewing on it, so that the client can just sit there and see everything instead of being over the shoulder of the camera operator. And then from there went into, all right, so now we have this nice space. What are we going to film inside of it? Or what are we going to shoot inside of it? So we ultimately thought of what are the biggest things that normally happen. You normally see big cyc wall with a lighting grid, and that's pretty much it. So then our first thing was, where do we put it? How do we put it there? And we had to hire a whole crew, a whole team to come in and actually build the cyc wall, because we had no idea how to build it and what to do. So they built the cyc wall, got that done. And then once we were done with that, we had this big issue, which was sound, because when you have a 6,000 square foot space and it's just empty, you've got a lot of echoes. So then we had to install curtains, building the curtains, putting those guys in. So we had to get those imported from, I think actually from Toronto, big sound curtains, so that the whole thing is completely insulated. We insulated the ceiling, so the whole thing is completely insulated for sound and being able to record audio, no problems. And then from there, it was just kind of, the last problem is getting clients. And then it was just kind of how do we advertise the space and be different from anybody else outside of our own space. And that was just another challenge. It just it still is a challenge, but it's still going. It's still been a about almost a year and a half, I think, now, of just trying to figure things out and hoping that something works.
Do you find it to be a little easier though? Because I feel like when you're running a video production company, you're dealing with a bigger pool where there's more competitors versus when you're dealing with studios, rental spaces, there's not that many compared to how many video production companies there are. And also a lot of people need to shoot, and oftentimes a lot of rental spots are booked, right? So
I don't know. I think, Matt, you can also attest to this too. I don't know if you guys have this issue in Toronto, but there's no lack of studio spaces here in Montreal. There's so many spaces. It's
Oh,
it's
really?
crazy. Oh yeah. It's like everywhere you look, somebody else is creating a new studio and building. Like literally, we built our studio about a year and a half ago, and now there's 3 other ones that are being built up near us. And actually, we're past clients of ours that said, "Oh, screw it. Well, if you guys can do it, we can do it too." So they're building their own
Really?
studio
Okay.
inside their own offices. So they're not direct competition in that way, but you lose clientele that way, where they start to look at it and say, okay, if this guy can do it, then so can we. But there's definitely not a lack of studio space in Montreal. There's if anything, I think it's more competitive in the studio world than it is actually in the production world, because there's so much to go around production wise, and creativity and concepts can always change, and you can make it so you don't have to work inside of a studio, or you can work it outside, or you can work it in your basement if you have to. Whereas if you need the studio space, it's almost the cheapest and the one that has the most value that wins. At the end of the day, they're just looking to make sure that they can keep themselves inside a budget. So that's why we tried to kind of make sure, knowing that our studio is mainly built for us, and then everything else is kind of added on top. The pricing on our side was, we know what we can charge for it, and said, you know what, let's completely like cut that margin down, and be that space that can add value and also be at a reasonable price, so that people do want to actually come into us. So it's kind of competing that way, but it is a very competitive space here in Montreal for sure.
Let's talk about your partnership for a moment. Like, you guys were both solopreneurs, right? How do you go
Yeah.
from that to a partner after, being in the industry for so long? Like, because normally not a lot of people do that. They're very hesitant, right? So what were some of
Yeah.
the what was some of the resistance you were both facing, and how did you overcome that?
I think so when I went to I didn't want to be in the art field for until I stopped playing football. So when I was young, I was super invested in playing football, and long story short, got a scholarship to play in the NCAA. Got hurt, came back to film school in Montreal, and that's only when I started discovering my love for like film and directing and the creative world. And so I worked about for 6 years as kind of a freelance, run and gun operating guy with a camera, and I would just kind of go to my own shoots and like pack my car with lights and like just try to like make it happen. And I realized like that's not sustainable from like a business aspect, and if I wanted to scale, and like I did weddings at the beginning, so I really wanted to like narrow down my dream of being kind of this business owner. So and a lot of these brands I was working with and still am, I would go do stuff like, say, like Formula One, like I would do stuff with them, or the NBA. But to be able to kind of contribute more, they're less likely to invest in like just one guy. So we put together, this plan that, okay, well, if we're a production company and we have employees and we have an office space and we have the room and scope to grow and support these big media mandates by these big clients, then it's a lot easier to trust people like that. If we build like a sustainable business plan to prove people, hey, we're growing, I have a partner now, we have employees that we pay, we have things that we're doing, we have big projects that we're working on, and we can take on this large workload. So I think I say this all the time, but Mike and I are such a great yin and yang. He's a great people person. He's a great relationship guy. He's an incredible producer. And myself, I believe that I'm really creative. I can edit. I go in there. I'm a director, so that kind of creative world I get in very well. So I think we work that perfectly, and we kind of realized that pretty quickly in our relationship that not only do we get along as people very well, but also in that kind of business world, that yin and yang, I think it works perfectly. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me that I needed an expansion. He had the tools to do that, and I think it was a perfect meshing point at that point. So I thought, yeah, it was a no-brainer for me at least to get together and see where we could take this together and how large we can scale. So since we've been together, I think it's been pretty great.
And just to add to that, I mean, on our side, so before actually working with Matt, Deep Rock Productions was myself and two other guys, and we were always coming with our own creative, and we're not creative. Like we are the opposite side of creative. We're I'm more the technical, like you give me the creative and then I will figure out how to get it done. Same thing with my editor, Terrence, and my DP, Eric. They're creative in their own way. They're not creative in terms of coming up with concepts. And I remember us about like 2 years ago saying, my God, we got to figure out creative, or we're just gonna sink. And then it just magically out of the dust, Matthew came in and really pulled us out from that rut of just kind of figuring out like how do we move forward. And he was able to come in and kind of take those reins from us and kind of figure out all this creative kind of going forward, and really adding that extra like amazingness, I guess you could say, to a lot of the videos and a lot of the work that we've been producing ever since we started working together.
So how many partners are there in total? 4 then?
So
in the agency, it's just Mike and I.
Correct, yeah. And the other two, like I said, Terrence and Eric. So the way we work is a lot of freelance work. So technically they're on contract with us. They all work inside of the office here because they're 98% of their work comes from both of us. So we invest in buying the desks and buying and building computers for the inside of the studio to allow for them to kind of come in and not have to really worry about where am I going to do this work and how am I going to get this stuff done. So they're kind of like a in between an employee and a freelancer. They come in and they do the work that we have to get done pretty much right next to us, while at the same time we give the studio space to them to be able to kind of build different projects. And right now, like Terrence, our editor, he's also producing the series called Deep Rock Originals, which is a music series where we have artists come in, do a couple songs, and then we create like a video, a live session video for them. So Terrence is able to kind of, because of having the space, being able to kind of take that creativity and be able to turn it into an actual project that's tangible and actually could possibly lead to something.
So now that you guys are, oh, sorry, Kyrill, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the way you guys went about finding yourselves as partners was definitely the right way to go. You guys identified problems and challenges that you guys were facing that you knew that would be very difficult for your to fix yourselves. So you looked elsewhere to see who you could work with that can fill that gap. And that is a sign of a good partnership. A lot of the time people get into partnerships because, you know, for superficial reasons or things like that, and they
maybe
don't
just
always
at the beginning,
pan out.
though. Maybe just at the very beginning.
Yeah,
probably because of
yeah.
inexperience too, right?
Exactly. But when people typically get into partnerships later on in their careers, it's because they've obviously matured enough in their careers that they know what skills they lack, and they want to surround themselves with people that not only elevate them, but are also better than them in those in those specific gaps, so that everybody can work together and succeed together. So that's great.
Absolutely. I always looked up to, actually, like I remember we would always be, I treated Matt actually at the beginning as more competition than I did as, because we never really worked together. So I'd always see him doing something. I was like, God damn it, I wish we could do that. Why is he able to do it? We can't. And then it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of worked together that we were able to come together and make this partnership. I'm
a big believer in like working with people that I enjoy working with. And I think in this space, like if you're on set all day and things are going to get tough and it's going to get tight and it's going to get stressful, but at the end of the day, like if you're with your friends and you're with the people that you care about and you're having a good time, like you can stop and say like, oh, this is incredible. Like I wouldn't be rather doing anything else. Like we're lucky enough to be creating, you know, commercial video content or photos or campaigns for these clients that we love, doing what we love all day. So the key part of Mike was like getting to know him first as a person and knowing like his core values, business aside, like, am I going to hang out with this guy on the weekend? And, like the answer was like, yes, definitely. He's a great person. So, and then on top of that, just everything from a business aspect, everything he's done with the studio and with his production company and just seeing what we can do together and buying in on that vision and knowing that we can make big waves and not only here in Montreal, but in the US and worldwide as we're doing. I think it's a testament to how well we work together. So it's been exciting.
So I guess on the production side of things, you guys found a pretty good way to work with each other. You guys have a good working relationship. But on the business side of things, like in terms of growing the company, how do you guys go about that?
Yeah, so I think we try to do things at a slow rate right now. I think the thing you have to be careful at when growing a company is expanding too quickly. So I'm a big firm believer in having, you know, Swiss Army knives as your initial employees, like people who can do a lot of things. So the fact that Mike can be on set as a producer, but also have that back end business sense, and myself as well, like be on set, do the creative, do the pre-production, and then also at the end of the day we can, you know, wash our hands and then get into like the growth of the business and how we're going to expand and how we're going to target new clients and how we're going to offer different services, what makes us separate than every other competitor, and you know what value we're going to bring and how we're going to do it, and all those questions, and to be able to bounce those off each other. So it's definitely a 50-50 relationship when it comes to business growth. I think we both have a great business sense, so being able to bounce ideas off each other and using, you know, organizational apps like Asana is like our go-to for task delegation and what we have to do.
You started using that.
Yeah,
we just started using that the other week. It's amazing.
yeah, it's incredible. Like just the how in depth it goes. So we all, you know, we're always assigning each other tasks on what to do and how we're going to take the next step. And we're just super excited about growing, and we see where we can be and we see what's happening, and we just know we can compete with the best. So I think, yeah, it's hard after a long day because we're not so many employees right now. Like we're wearing many hats, but I think as we grow, we'll meticulously delegate certain tasks to new employees as they come in and make sure that we always kind of have the reins on the direction and where we're going to go for sure.
So since it's so early days, it's only the two of you at the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have like as ownership or just working within the company. Like,
Right.
Like, do you mean like it's just the two of us in ownership,
It's
or
more
as a
so the
company?
two of you as the core team. It's because it's the way Dario and I, for example, operate. It's the two of us as the core Lapse team members, and then we have a bunch of freelancers that we hire out depending on the needs of the project. So I guess that's similar to where you guys are, since you're just launching the new agency now. Do you have an idea of probably what the first hire will be down the road in terms of helping you guys alleviate a lot of your tasks as well?
Yeah, Mike, do you want to comment on
Yeah,
that?
so on our side, we are the core, like the two owners would be Matthew and myself, and then like I was saying there before, DP, as well as we have a graphic designer, and we also have our editor, who are also core members of the team, not owners but core members, or guys that I've been working with the last 5 years. So those guys would be, I guess you could say, once we go into hiring employees, it'd be the first employees. But beyond that, right now, what we're actually looking for and we're trying to find is just more people in general. Like we're just looking for more editors, we're looking for more graphic designers, looking for more crew members, like people on set, just because of the fact that in the future we know that we're going to have overlapping shoots. We have overlapping shoots that are happening this week. Like things are happening where I can't be on set, Matt's going to have to be on set, I have to go to a different project, he's going to be on another one. We want to be able to have those A and B teams, those maybe even C teams, that can go out and do the smaller projects while the bigger project can get done. So we're not losing out on those, one, those clients, and two, obviously the money. but on those opportunities, because sometimes, yeah, there's a small budget, but that opportunity can be super, super big, and it could be a really cool project to work on that could then lead to a whole different world. So we like to never say no to anything. It's usually just yes, 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 and then figure it out later. So for us, it's really finding kind of that just continuously looking for different people that have the same mindset, same values, same goals, same ideas as we do. And obviously you'll never find, somebody who wants to work as hard as you to building your business, but somebody who still has those kinds of values and those ideas, and that workability, I guess you would say, is what we're looking for. Just people,
You want
designers.
that, you want
Yeah.
that, you want that leadership within the role of that person.
Correct, yeah.
So if we have, a lead graphics designer that is eventually going to have a team under him, like we want him to be as independent and be able to do that. So it's like, it's difficult. Like this is our first time building a company together. So I think there's a lot of trials and tribulations that come with it, and everything is a learning experience, and we'll continue to learn for years to come. So it's a joy when we see things go through, and it's definitely hard work, but it's constant problem solving. But having like a great guy next to you to be able to do that and grow with makes it 1,000 times better, because that he's got your back throughout the whole thing.
I forgot who said this, but I think it was another guest. They said your first hire is always going to be the hardest one.
Yeah, yeah, it always is. But it sounds like you guys already have an idea of your first 3 hires, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just a
Correct.
matter of getting enough of that business so that it becomes more of a permanent type role at the end of the day as time goes, right?
That's it, exactly.
One thing I like that you guys mentioned was you want to be able to expand your team and the people that you work with, so that you can service all types of clients, however big or small, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes those smaller budgets, it's just because that's what the budget is for that client at that moment. There have been times where Dario and I have worked with clients where they've only had budgets of maybe 3,000, 4,000, for example, which wouldn't be considered really big for a big agency or production company. But at that time, they only had a very small need, and we helped them out. We helped them out with that, and then eventually, maybe half a year to a year later, they had more and more projects coming in that were much higher budgets that actually would be the ones that we would be looking for as well. And yeah, if you guys are working on bigger projects, sometimes you need to be able to send off people to help out on those smaller ones, because you never know. You really never know what opportunities are going to come your way and from where, from whom.
That's it. That's why the answer is always yes. It's even we Matt and I actually didn't work on this, but at the beginning of the production, the Deep Rock Productions, we had heard on the radio someone was looking for a production company for a TV show, and we said,
Wow.
let's just try. Let's just see.
Yeah, you never
Apply
know.
to it.
You never
Apply
know.
to it. No problem. Come for a meeting. Go into the meeting. Everything goes well. And then the next day he calls us back. He says, okay, you guys are hired. We're going to start next week. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So like, we had no idea. We just were fresh out of university, had no idea what we were going to do. They said yes. I guess we were able to persuade them enough. They said yes, and then it led to a pretty weird story, but maybe that's for a different podcast.
I'm curious now.
I don't even know if I'm allowed to
After
talk
the
about
show.
it. That's the
After the
problem.
show.
Exactly. After the show. I don't
Yeah,
even know if I'm allowed to talk about it. But either way, it went on to CTV. It was an actual, like a real show at the end of the day. And we were a bunch of barely 20-year-olds producing a TV show. So
I think we're still doing that now, like in some of the projects that we do. Like we meet people, or I go somewhere and I meet someone, and then we're like all of a sudden in the middle of this thing, like, being able to create a massive billboard campaign for, say, Michael Jordan, that is going to be like, we had never done billboard prints before, and that was our first big campaign. And to be able to do that and execute that in the studio, and then you're like in it, and you're like, how did we get in this? But let's just do it. And then all of a sudden you're learning a bunch of things, and we learned how to composite and how do we shoot bottle photography, how do we shoot liquid, like Eric, our DP, like actually putting in the time to learn that and learn how to shoot liquid and executing that on like a super tight timeline, and then sending it to print, and then finally like seeing your images like in like billboards, like on the highways in Miami and like in Los Angeles. And it's like really exciting. And then finally we like all sit down and go like, wow, that just happened. So I think if we didn't say yes to that because we were scared of if we could deliver, if we could execute, then we would have never had that experience. So, obviously you can't over promise and under deliver. You have to have some confidence in yourself in that sense, but to always, we always take on projects and just figure it out. Like that's the main thing. We'll just figure it out. And I think we have the core team right now where we can do that. And we're at a point now where it's like, okay, anything is possible. We know how to execute it. We know how to execute it at a high level. So it's just about, how we're going to do that.
You have to be a problem solver, not just on the business
Yeah.
side of things, but also on the technical video production side of things too, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times we go on shoots, we don't know exactly how that shoot is going to go. We have a rough idea, and then as soon as we get there, we kind of just figure it out. And if you get this far, you've always been able to figure it out with at least 90% accuracy.
Yeah, we're at a point now where we're going through things right now where we have a budget, and since I'm the creative guy, I'll just shoot out all these ideas, VFX, this and that, and then Mike will talk me off the ledge, like, okay, we need to kind of be in this world, so maybe if we do this, maybe we can do that. So like it's a constant negotiation between the two of us, because like I just want to blow the whole budget on VFX, and he's like, well, we can't do that, so we need to like dial it down because we have like all these other things that we have to do. So it's fun, and it's a constant constant balancing act of budgets and creative work and how we can do things. So right now we're in a space where I think the more planning we do pre-production, the easier everything goes. So there's a very like clear idea on what we're doing and when we're doing it. So but it's fun. Yeah, it's definitely a fun process.
I'm amazed you guys are able to run not just like a video production agency, but also like a studio rental company at the same time. Like I was just trying to process that earlier. I'm like, man, and it's just you guys as the core team. Obviously, you have other people that are helping you on the production side of things, but to run both companies at the same time, like Kyrill and I are struggling to run one.
Well, I think Mike, the studio has become pretty self-sufficient, right?
Correct. Yeah. At this point, so we have obviously like Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google search, all that kind of fun stuff. That's really leading our charge in terms of letting people know about the studio, and I think that's something that not too many studios in Montreal are doing, or if they are doing it, they're not doing it very well, because I think a lot of the owners of studios are older guys who already have these networks of people who aren't like worried about the future. They're just kind of like, whatever, we're going to get our clients are going to come in, they're going to love us, they're going to always be here, they're always going to be there, right? For us, it's like no, we've got to be able to come in here and try and steal that away, advertise more, tell more people about it, so the more people who know about it, the more frequency, the more times they come in, they then become our new clients. Once the older guys fade out and they're younger, the younger guys come in to take over from the bigger agencies across Toronto, Montreal, everywhere, and even the US as well. Once they start to see that there's better value here than there is somewhere else, because they know that they can charge certain prices because they'll just pay it, or they'll just cut corners on certain things because they know that they can. For us, it's coming in and kind of being that, like I should say, disruptor, and trying to put ourselves in and just kind of shove ourselves into the first in line kind of idea.
That's really interesting.
It's just always a constant back and forth. There's no plan for it, like we said there, like you were saying before, like there's no plan. It's just kind of as things come, and how crazy this industry is and how much it changes every week. There's a new camera that comes out, there's a new light that comes out, there's a new lens that comes out that completely changes a game or revolutionizes. Like I as soon as that probe lens came out from Laowa, I think, or every single video you saw after that, every commercial was used with that Laowa, the lens, and there was probe lenses all over the place. I couldn't scroll through my feed without seeing someone doing something with that lens. So you always have to be kind of just changing with the game and kind of just working.
Like Mike said, there's no plan, but there's definitely a big plan. But the plan is to be able to adjust, to
And
be,
adapt.
Correct. Yeah.
your team's a Swiss Army knife, but your business plan has to be a Swiss Army knife as well. And I think having, 5 fingers of touch points through your business, I mean, every company says they offer, creative direction, photography, video production, graphic design, but to be able to actually execute and have that in-house and to be able to offer those services is like huge. So I think to be able to go different directions and have multiple sources of income to be able to support when the market goes somewhere, because if the market's not offering 10, 15, 25, $100,000 for a video at this moment, then okay, then that's just not the market, and you have to adjust to it, and you have to be able to still produce.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Like
huge. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say exactly, because the reason we have to be so adaptable is because, as you said, the market is changing constantly, and our clients especially are the ones adapting. When they're adapting, we have to adapt with them. If they realize that they need to change their business model, their marketing goals shift, we can't stay in the exact same way that we were working before that. And this is why probably also your studio is doing so well compared to some of those other ones, because they're really set in their own ways. They're not willing to adapt or change, and that is why they're set up for failure down the road. And it's like adaptability is survivability at this point of the game.
100%. Like, I mean, just seeing even during like the beginning of COVID, like I remember when clients just would like literally call me and be like, we're not doing, like, canceling shoots, canceling productions. And you have to be able to adapt to that and kind of be like, oh my God, okay, these guys are like, where's my source of income going to come in from? Right. And trying to figure that kind of stuff out. And when the market, and you also have to really look at the economy in general as a whole, because see how things are going. Are people buying things? Are people wanting to buy more expensive things or less expensive things? Are companies willing to start to spend this money on advertising because the economy is super low, or we're going to a recession, we're going to all these kinds of things? It really does affect and comes back to you, because then if a company doesn't want to advertise because they got to save money to be able to pay their actual employees who are working day to day, you don't get that money. You don't get to do that job, right? No matter how much you keep pitching them and trying to sell them, if they don't got the money, they don't got the money. That's pretty much it.
It doesn't appear out of nowhere.
Yeah. What kind of systems are you guys setting in place now to ensure like future success?
What do you mean?
Like you guys mentioned the sauna, right? Because like one thing Kyrill and I, from what we learned from other guests, is that you need to have systems in place to be able to scale, to grow, and just have like proper like processes in
Proper
place. Right?
operations.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, from a back end standpoint, Asana's been a big help, because we have now the productions that we're doing are so involved in pre-production. Like pre-production is a production in itself. So we'll have on Asana, we'll have the client, and we have a full list of our clients. And then we have within that client, we have different campaigns. So April or May 2022 campaign. And then within that May campaign, we have whether it's a static campaign, so photos. We have our video campaign, so all our video ads that are in that campaign that are being made. And then we have within the video campaign, we have that specific production. And then we have pre-production, production, post-production. So in pre-production, we'll have like 7 or 8 categories of location scouting, shot lists, mood boards, art direction, whether we need props, so all the pickups, stuff like that. And then within, like, say, location scouting, we have like all our work back schedules. So when we need to scout locations, when we need to get them approved, and that goes on to like the production, so making sure we have our pre-production checklists. And then post-production, we have all our cuts, revisions, notes that we put on frame.io to get the client just to review them right there. So either Terrence or I can make those changes. So
that's also huge. Frame.io.
Just being as organized as possible, I think, sets your framework. So when you have new people coming in to work, they can be easily integrated into the program and be able to see their tasks super easily, whether it's on a daily schedule or on a weekly schedule, and they can be able to just take care of that. And then they can put updates there, and we can be notified when we need to review their work or when things are submitted, and just be able to keep track of that, because right now there's so many things happening and we don't want to say no. So then like we have to be organized to a T, or else things are going to be missed, deadlines aren't going to be made, clients aren't going to be happy, and we're just going to be like walking in mud going backwards. And the last thing we want to do is take on too much and not be able to deliver. So we've been really working hard on being organized and being efficient. You have to be efficient.
Yeah, you have to be efficient to the point where you're able to give your clients a good experience, because think about it when you're hiring a service for whatever you might want. You want something that is easy to use, simple process, straightforward, people that are very forthcoming. If sometimes if they though, however, make you jump through so many different hoops to get what you eventually need, then you're thinking to yourself, what was the point of even hiring you at the end of the day, right? And something as simple as Frame.io, for example, completely shifted the way we were doing all of our post-production note revisions and everything like that, because we all know those Microsoft Word documents that we've all had to deal with in the past.
Or the email chains.
Or the
Oh my
email
gosh.
chains from 10 different people from the same client, where nothing's consolidated to the point where it was just a complete mess of a nightmare. And so Frame.io made it a lot easier, although we did notice one other challenge that came by really quickly, which allowed us to also adapt and shift, which was that letting them know that they can comment, or whoever has that link can comment whatever their notes are, can also be a challenge in and of itself. If they have 10 different people commenting and arguing with each other in those comments about what should be done with
Yeah,
the
exactly.
videos.
It even needs to
So
be more granular, where you have to be like, okay, we're only going to accept the comments from these 5 people. Nobody else can say this. I don't care who like. You almost have to go down to that level, even more
we do
detailed.
2.
There you go.
We do
Exactly.
2.
That's it.
We
2
do
people.
2, maximum 2.
That's it. Exactly. You have to, because definitely everyone, and that's what this world is. It's subjective. And it's just one person's mind can think, okay, I want to go down, I want to go right, and the other one saying, no, we have to go left. Eventually
Then they
everyone comes
compromise.
exactly. Eventually everyone comes back down to the same spot at the end, but the amount of left and right turns that you're doing because somebody else says go this way, go that way, go this way, go that way, it's not an objective world, and something you just kind of have to understand and
Unless you're producing, funding, and directing the work, it's just about making the clients happy and giving them what they want. Like you don't want to have a relationship where it's constant pushback, and you just, unless they give you a mandate where it's like, okay, create all this, but even when you do, there's going to be revisions. So I think it's about just taking care of that relationship, providing them what they want, and putting your ego at the door and just saying like, okay, this is what you want, and we're going to give you exactly what you want, and delivering on that. And
They're paying you at the end of the day, right? So
Yep.
there's only so much demanding you can do in terms of the creative for that project if they're the ones footing the bill too, right?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if they're paying for it, then that's how I think about it, at least, is whatever the client says goes at the end of the day. I mean, if they're not happy with it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you beg, scream, yell, and cry. If they don't like it, they're not paying you. So make sure they like it.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can still you still want to work with them and try to help them, because sometimes they may not necessarily know what they're asking for as well.
Mhm.
So it's also your job to make sure that it doesn't get to that point where they're very set on a certain thing that is not going to work. You got to try to help them throughout the whole production process, especially in pre. Let them know what will work, what won't work, and then usually those challenges don't come later on in post. And you get that with experience. It takes years to develop that type of communication skills and working and collaborating with clients and other people, and eventually we all figure it out, right?
Eventually. And even after eventually, you still don't figure it out. Then something else changes, and then you got to readapt.
A new client comes in.
That's it. Exactly. With a completely different industry.
I wonder what the next generation will be before. Sorry, Dario, before we get once we get older, if we get into our 40s and then we're dealing with clients that are in their 20s, what that's going to be like.
It's going to be even weirder. Right? Like I can only imagine people who are in their 50s, 60s now that were in this space 20, 30 years ago. There's no way that they thought that this was going to come around and they were going to have the same problems that we're having today.
Exactly.
It's good that at least we know that this industry changes on a whim, so we're always ready to adapt to the next big thing.
We
That's
grew
it.
on adaptability. That's essentially it. And you need to do that. You need to grow on adaptability.
100%. I think in every industry, honestly, not even just this industry, everything's got to be able to adapt. And I think COVID definitely gave everybody a little wake up call that they're not, even big corporations are not invincible.
Mhm.
That little gut punch.
That's it,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're at the 1 hour mark, so I think this is a good place to end it off. So, guys, thank you so much for coming. Actually, before we end off,
Yeah.
why don't you tell us how you guys came up with the name Agency 96?
Oh my God, that was the worst
So-
experience of my life.
that was days and days of sitting inside of this very office with actually like the guys we were talking about there before, Terrence, Mike, and Eric, as well as me and Matt, sitting in here and just kind of throw a name. At the beginning, the name was Agency X because I would just say, oh, Agency X will do, like just the unknown kind of idea.
Placeholder, yeah.
It was just a placeholder name, and then we were kind of like, that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll do that. And then we started noticing that there's like 500 different
7,000, yeah.
agency X's that exist in the world.
I was
and
prepared.
then
I was
also-
prepared to spend like I'm like a very like task guy. So I was like, I have a like 1 hour task on this on like a Tuesday, and let's just do it then. And it was like week 2, and we're still talking about this stupid name. And I was like, it's a thing that matters because it's the first, first impressions exist. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, it Eric, our DP, said it, like it doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be incredible. It just can't be terrible. Like,
Exactly.
so it has to be a name that is like, okay, no problem. So we tried a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, where Mike and I are both born in 1996. Eric's 96.
All of us.
Our lead graphics guy is 96. Our editor's 96. So we're like, all right, we're just the 96 gang. So let's just go with
Agency
96. And that
yeah.
was like our core root. And so we went with that.
Nice. That actually has a nice little story to it. There's always little stories that come behind it. Like for ours, the name came from a script that we were specifically Dario was writing, titled Lapse. And then when we decided to work together, we were trying to think of a name, and he said, why don't we just do Lapse? And I said, no, we're not going with the first option that we choose. And like that doesn't happen. You don't go with the very first one.
Exactly.
We tried hundreds of names and nothing sounded as good or was available compared to the first one. We're like, all right, that's it. That's the name.
There you go.
We literally just chose it because it sounded cool, and now we actually developed something pretty cool with it. We turned it into an acronym, so it stands for Lasting Amazing Sounds, Pictures, and Experiences. I was like, okay,
There you
this
go.
is like the story we tell our
Sounds
clients.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Actually,
Amazing.
you spelt it as LASP, Dario, just now. So
Oh,
You did.
pictures, sounds, and experiences.
it's 9 in
Awesome.
the morning. Okay, I need my second tea before I function at 100%.
There you go. Exactly.
There we go. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Well, we'll leave it at that. But thanks again for joining us on Creators Grab Coffee. And, hopefully we continue all growing and adapting with this crazy market, right?
Absolutely.
For
And
sure.
hopefully our paths actually cross in the production world. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we see the same people over and over again. So we're always in Toronto, we're always in Montreal, we're all over the place. So maybe our paths will cross someday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if
If we got to shoot in Montreal and we need a studio, now we know who to reach out to.
You know who to call. Exactly.
Exactly. Or even if you guys are in town and just want to grab a drink, and just connect in person, we're open to that as well.
Love it.
Definitely.
Awesome,
Right.
guys.
Okay.
All right. Take care, guys.
Appreciate it.
easy,
Take care.
guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks.